Amazing. Okay, hello and welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you again. I'm delighted, first of all, to introduce you to Dr. Faraz Al-Kabani, who is joining us from Brighton, I believe, if you're in Brighton right now. Yes. Faraz is an associate professor of Arabic and comparative literature and also the co-director of the Middle East and North Africa Centre at Sussex University. He's also a leading figure in the development of the Syrian Academics and Researchers Network in the UK and acts as a trustee on the Council of British Society for Middle Eastern Studies. So Faraz, if you'd be kind enough to speak to us for a moment, perhaps just about your experiences, about your work, it would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George, for this very generous introduction and the invitation as well. Sorry, can I just double check? Would it be better if I spoke in English or in Arabic? What would be best for everyone?
I
English
don't
should
think
be fine.
we don't mind. We won't,
Yeah.
Millie and I won't know what's happening, but that's fine. Please, whatever you feel
All right.
comfortable with.
Okay, so I'll continue with English then, if that's okay. Yeah. I mean, to begin with, it's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, George, for this great initiative, much needed, especially at this time. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really prepared much to say. All I wanted to say is just to wish people luck with this, and it's great to bring scholars from around the world, especially from Palestine, this difficult time, also to kind of talk about, academia and how we can kind of develop our own skills together, etc. In terms of, I think where my experience is relevant here is because, well, I am a scholar from the region. I mean, I come from Syria originally, so my parents are from Damascus. I was born in Dubai. I grew up between Dubai and Damascus. And then I came to Sussex in 2007 to do my MA. Then I did my PhD. I won a scholarship. And yes, I mean, academia isn't always very easy to break into, but I think it can be quite kind of rewarding as well once you've sort of done what you wanted to do. Yeah, and since then I've been involved in all sorts of things. I mean, my research mainly focuses on comparative literature. I explore, I mean, the sexuality, representations of sexuality in Orientalist literature, mainly in the 19th century, and also explore how Arab scholars of the Nahda period looked at Europe back then. So it's a comparative study. Since then, I've moved into the Arab Spring stuff and what's happening now in the region. And yeah, but I mean, just part of my journey, I had to sometimes just be one step ahead of the students. So I had to teach things like the history of India, which I didn't know anything about. I would just have to kind of read stuff and go to lectures and just try to kind of educate myself, etc. So I think the thing about academia really is it's a constant process of learning and education, and we don't always choose what we want to do. Sometimes we are put in positions where we have to take up certain things, but I think in the long run, they're all very, very kind of useful. I mean, I really do wish you all the best here. And if there's anything I can support or help with, I mean, I'm more than happy to do that. So I'll be attending, I think, until just 20 past 10, which is just over 10 minutes from now because I've got to go, unfortunately. But George, if you could just keep me posted, please, on what's going on. And if there's anything I can do to support or help, I'll be more than happy to do it. So thank you very much again for the invitation and lovely to meet you all.
Thank you, Faraz. It's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for your support personally and with this work together. It's just been fantastic. So thank you. If we're happy, I will make a start. Does that sound good, Ahmed? Does that sound good to you? Okay, great. I'll share my screen. I've practiced this time beforehand. Okay. All right. Now, is everything visible and I'm audible? All is good. Yes,
Yes, all
thumbs
good.
up. Amazing, thank you. I should have said Millie and Chris are also joining us. I should have said that. Welcome to them too. Okay, so welcome everyone. Please feel welcome. You are welcome. Over the course of the next hour and a bit, I'm going to talk to you about a single poem, Prayer 1 by George Herbert. I will talk about its imagery and its form. I'm going to ask you to share your own ideas and questions at 3 intervals over the course of the webinar. If you feel comfortable to do so, you're welcome to share your ideas and questions during those intervals, either by turning on your microphone or by typing into the chat. If you have something to share before we reach an interval and you feel comfortable to do so, you are welcome to type it into the chat at any time. Also, you do not need to take notes of the session unless you would like to, but I will be asking if you'd like to take part in a writing activity later on, and you will be welcome to share that work with the group if you feel comfortable. Okay, let's begin. For a moment, I would like you to reflect on what we have discussed in our earlier webinars together. It seems to me that part of our work involves reflecting on what it means to make a contribution to knowledge, and what such a contribution could even be. We might say that a university education centres on this task, and that the work of publishing our writing in academic journals does too. The task of preparing ourselves to contribute to knowledge and the ongoing practice of making such contributions. I'd say that's true where I'm speaking from, and that this description reflects how I've been taught. Our time together so far has also prompted the following question. In the current war, how is it possible for students and academics in Gaza to make a contribution to knowledge? How is it possible to prepare to do this with everything that's happening? Research methods, theories, and academic journals, including brief encounters, set out certain expectations for what counts as a contribution to knowledge. They come with specific criteria and established conventions. On the one hand, such conventions create a standard which can guide our development as scholars. They provide structure that helps us to ensure that we are prepared to contribute to knowledge in ways that are recognized as valuable. On the other hand, such conventions can bring with them some assumptions about the conditions in which contributions to knowledge can be made. If established methods, theories, and academic publications can't adapt, if their conventions can't be challenged or changed, what will the world remain unable to learn or understand? I believe I speak for myself and my colleagues when I say that the resilience and adaptive strategies you enact on a daily basis create a huge impact. This is becoming ever clearer to me the more opportunities we have to work with you. The special issue we hope you will contribute to is intended to share that impact more widely. It is intended to respect the truth of your circumstances, to challenge the conventions and establish ways of doing academic work, of contributing to knowledge, as far as necessary to make that possible. My Arabic language teacher, Reem, who kindly gave me my first lesson last week, has helped me to learn another way to express what I mean. Here we go. I need feedback probably. Afkarukom muhimma lana. And it is not only important to us that are here now. It's something I know we wanted to make sure we emphasized. Okay, maybe you're starting to think, I thought this was a poetry workshop. What does poetry have to do with this? In the time we have together today, I would like to provide space to contemplate poetry via the following questions. Can poetry, or how is poetry, a contribution to knowledge? What ways of knowing are possible through poetry? To explore these questions, as I've mentioned, I'm going to talk about a poem called Prayer 1, often known simply as Prayer, by the English poet and Christian priest George Herbert. Before I say any more about the poem or its poet, let's turn to the poem itself, which you can see now on the slide, and I'll read it aloud. As you listen, I invite you to consider what you notice about it, what's unclear, and more importantly, what stands out to you. Okay. Prayer, the Church's banquet, angels' age, God's breath in man returning to his birth, the soul in paraphrase, heart in pilgrimage, the Christian plummet sounding heaven and earth, engine against the Almighty, sinner's tower, reversed thunder, Christ's side-piercing spear, the 6 days world transposing in an hour, a kind of tune which all things hear and fear. Softness and peace and joy and love and bliss, exalted manna, gladness of the best, heaven in ordinary, man well dressed, the Milky Way, the bird of paradise, church bells beyond the stars heard, the soul's blood, the land of spices, something understood. As I've now read this poem many times, it's difficult to recall what my first impression of it was. I think I felt aware that it creates repeated pauses. Perhaps that is an effect of its punctuation, the repeated commas and semicolons, which cue me to slow down as I read it. At the same time, in a way that seems contradictory, I find myself trying to keep up with everything that the poem describes. Each descriptive phrase follows immediately after the next, with no words in between them to explain what their relationship to each other is. It is a disorientating experience of which I'm not sure what I understand. However, it does occur to me that some of the images contained in the descriptions rise to the surface of my attention more readily than others. The soul in paraphrase, a kind of tune, the land of spices, prayer. I want to acknowledge at this point that I'm not someone who grew up with a particular prayer tradition, nor do I pray regularly. I don't feel that I have an intimate relationship with what prayer or the act of praying can mean. From what I have learnt about this poem, I know that its author, George Herbert, adhered to the Protestant tradition of prayer, which is one expression of the Christian doctrine. As a Protestant priest, Herbert speaks from a particular view of prayer, one which is unique to him as an individual, as a priest with some authority within the Protestant tradition, and who might therefore try to express something that represents a Protestant view. Okay, before proceeding any further, let's have our first interval. For the next 10 minutes, if you feel comfortable to share them, I'd like to find out your questions and reflections about anything I've said so far. The floor is yours. I'll keep the poem on the slide in case there are words or passages that you'd like to ask about or reflect on. And remember, you're welcome either to turn on your microphone and speak or to type into the chat. I think I went rather quickly there. Forgive me, I'm a bit nervous, but you're lovely, so I have no need to be. But yes, take your time and have a think. Anything you'd like to say about anything I've said so far? Oh, love hearts, it's nice, thank you. Ruba, please.
Um, Thank you for this amazing course, first of all, this meeting. And I was really interested in it because it's about what I love and I care especially, which is poetry. And while you read the poem, I've noticed that it doesn't have a specific rhyme. And that brought a question to me. Like, I've read so many poems, and most writers, especially like John Donne and George Herbert, they tend to use beats like the heartbeat one, and those beats because it's connected to God, because they are writers that are more interested in writing poems, religious poems. So I've noticed that it doesn't have a specific rhyme, and that's really intrigued me.
I'm so glad you mentioned this, Ruba, and it may overstep, but you were personally very important to the reason for me doing this workshop. I think without you, from the very first, expressing your passion for poetry, it would have been difficult for me to imagine this. So thank you for that. Thank you for your passion and enthusiasm. I am so glad you mentioned the rhyme because it is something I'll bring up again later. Um, but I agree with you. It is curious that it doesn't follow a particular scheme. I might kind of keep you hanging if that's possible. But I think the reason for Herbert choosing not to follow a strict rhyme scheme bears very much upon what it means. So I would say hold on to that. It's a really important observation. Huda, yes, absolutely. You have it in writing, so no worries about that. Is there anything else anyone would like to add or reflect on at this point? Okay. All right, I will keep going in that case. Okay. Right. So let's return to the poem. It might be helpful for me to venture my own description of what this poem is and what it might mean. Oh, yes, Jeremiah, do all these metaphors work together? That's such a good question. I don't know if they do. I really don't. I think that that's also part of it. You know, it's a strange combination in some respects, and it's quite jarring, the images you have. Um, I think prayer in this poem is both something worth celebrating and taking great joy and sort of euphoria in, and something that is powerful in a threatening kind of way. So I'm glad you raised that. Okay, yeah, this is great. Thank you. So my own description of this poem, I would say simply that it is a list. For a poem of only 14 lines, a surprisingly long list of descriptions and images of metaphors. You can see these numbered on the slide now. Most, I think, of them seem to convey to the reader what for Herbert prayers are, or what the act of praying is. Perhaps Herbert is trying to articulate in language the spiritual experience that he understands to be signified by the word prayer. If that's the case for Herbert, at least, what kind of thing is prayer? I'll return to some of those descriptions that stood out to me. The soul in paraphrase. This part, I think, at the beginning of the third line is perhaps my favourite of the whole poem. Is Herbert suggesting that prayer expresses the soul? If to paraphrase means to reword or express the meaning of something using different words, what is it that's being reworded? Or instead of prayer being a paraphrase of the soul in different words, is prayer the action, a soul in the act of rewording? It is unclear who or what is active here, who or what is in control, the person praying or their soul. This suggests, to me at least, that Herbert believes a person and their soul are not the same thing. A kind of tune which all things hear and fear. If I try to imagine what prayer might sound like according to this description, I can't. What kind of tune is it? It remains unclear. If we consider that the poem was published in 1633, almost 400 years ago, we can know that it was impossible to record music when Herbert was writing. A musical performance would disappear forever once it was over. It can never be repeated in exactly the same way. A kind of tune, perhaps, just as soon as one might recognize it, recognize that is prayer, it's gone. Yet as a kind of tune which all things hear and fear, surely the sound of prayer is loud, terrifyingly loud. Surely the louder a sound is, the easier it should be to recognize it. So in this poem, in what sense is prayer loud if it isn't possible to recognize the kind of tune it is? The land of spices. From what I have learnt about this poem, this line could be a reference to the diaries kept by English sailors at the time when Herbert was writing, who travelled across the Indian Ocean, when they described smelling the spices in India and the countries that make up the Arabian Peninsula before they'd even reached the shore. The land of spices seems to conjure the fantasy and real abundance of colour, flavour, and the promise of wealth, which those sailors yearned for, and in most cases would ultimately take for themselves. Like a kind of tune, the land of spices refers to an imprecise sensory experience. Here, rather than a sound, it is a smell, an aroma which contains within it the sailor's vague dreams of unfamiliar places. As a description, the land of spices, it falls far short of the vastness it implies. I'm going to check in the chat at this point. I feel like the background of the poet as being an orator affected this poem so much. Yeah, I agree with you, Ruba. And it makes it really enjoyable to read as well. I've taken a lot of joy from reading it, and I'd recommend that personally, those of you interested in poetry, though you probably do by instinct. Yeah, okay. So with those images now in mind, let's reflect on the poem's form. This is where we're going to talk about rhyme. So for those of you who are already literature students, this will probably run through everything you already know. But from what I have learned, I can tell you it's written in the sonnet form, and that the sonnet is thought to have been invented in the 13th century on the island of Sicily, after which it travelled through different countries and eventually arrived in England. Throughout this time, and after it arrived, the sonnet developed and changed just as the poets who experimented with it did. Herbert's poem was published almost 4 decades after the sonnet is thought to have had its heyday in England, long after the time when William Shakespeare made his mark upon the form. Indeed, Herbert's poem would just as easily be categorized as a Shakespearean sonnet. Faraz, thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. So Herbert's poem would just as easily be characterized as a Shakespearean sonnet, as following the style of Shakespeare, as it would simply as an English sonnet. It has a closed structure. The sonnet is organized typically according to strict rules. As we've said, the Shakespearean sonnet has 14 lines, but these 14 are organized into 3 groups of 4, otherwise known as quatrains, and ends with a final couplet, a pair of lines. You may now see them labeled on the slide. Typically, the 3 quatrains use cross-rhyming, the rhyming of words at the end of alternate lines, and the final couplet is given its own rhyme. But in Herbert's sonnet, as we've discussed, as Ruba has pointed out, this isn't adhered to. He chooses to depart from this convention. As you can see on the slide now, the rhyme scheme of Herbert's poem. At the beginning of each line, a different letter of the alphabet is used to label every new rhyme. So lines 1 and 3 should share a rhyme with each other, as should lines 2 and 4, and so on. Yet this labeling is misleading. For example, Herbert's use of cross-rhyming in the first stanza is imperfect. Age doesn't share the same sound as the end of the word pilgrimage, though they share the same spelling. The remainder of the lines in the first 2 quatrains do rhyme, birth and earth, tower, hour. But in the 3rd quatrain, rather than still using cross-rhyming as would be conventional, there is an envelope rhyme, a pair of rhyming lines nested inside another pair. The section where it reads gladness of the best, man well dressed, contained within, well, what should be 2 rhyming lines. Again, it's imperfect. Bliss and paradise use the same vowel, but share neither the same sound nor the same spelling. Why would Herbert do this? Why choose a form with such strict rules only to break them? What does any of it have to do with prayer? In a podcast about this poem, the literature professor Stephen Guy Bray explains that such a decision might reflect something about the meaning of prayer from a Protestant Christian point of view. According to the Protestant tradition, prayer is typically unpremeditated, even spontaneous. Worshippers were historically encouraged to find their own relationship with prayer, to pray as a free form of individual expression. Here we have a poem given the name Prayer that is deliberately organized and demonstrates a degree of discipline in its structure, yet doesn't adhere to that structure completely. It seems that the bounded form of the poem can't quite contain the boundless form of expression it is intended to describe. There is a contrast between the form of the poem and its subject matter. Okay, one more thing before our interval. Besides being a list of descriptions, an unconventional Shakespearean sonnet, this poem might simply be described as a grammatically incomplete sentence. Prayer, the church's banquet. Where is the verb? There is no finite verb, only participles. I have learnt that some readers interpret this poem's meaning by imagining the word is has been inserted into the first line. Prayer is the church's banquet, angel's age, etc. Alternatively, one might insert a verb in the subjunctive mood, as though the poem is an expression of what Herbert wishes prayer to be. Let prayer be the church's banquet, angel's age, etc. You can see these two possibilities on the slide now, highlighted in pink. As an incomplete sentence, the poem seems to show that the relationship between prayer and all of the descriptions that follow is ambiguous. Herbert seems to have left this relationship for us to figure out, or rather to decide for ourselves. Okay, let's have our next interval. Take a bit of time to slow me down. Let's have your questions once again. Please feel welcome to turn on your microphone and speak, or to type into the chat. Let's have a look. Yes. So yes, in your own time, any thoughts you might have, any questions?
Hi, Georgina. How are you?
Hello, I'm well, Huda. Hello, it's lovely to
Hi.
see you and hear you.
Just I working your bot very amazing and very great. Just
Oh, thank you.
very beautiful this boy. Just
Oh, that's so wonderful of you to say, Huda. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'll try not to be emotional, but it's really moving for me that you find it to be good and
okay.
enjoyable. Thank you.
And
Oh, wonderful. Jeremiah, does the poem challenge the idea of a static God? That's a really interesting question. I suppose the second line, I think that is the only one. We do have Christ mentioned, but the only one which mentions God is the second one. God's breath in man returning to his birth. Now, this line is quite, I find it difficult. What I've taken as notes about it are that this description, so it conveys the idea that God creates human beings by giving them the breath of life, by breathing into them, but that a prayer returns the breath of God to where it came from and to the moment that the human being is given life. So I think, to be honest, Jeremiah, I think it does challenge the idea that God is static, because it sort of creates a situation in which the breath of life is exchanged back and forth. So in a sense, it doesn't create a situation where God is at a further remove, I suppose, which is interesting. I like the word static in that context. Yeah, thank you. Ruba. It's the same thing in the whole poem. It's from the Bible. It also has a reference in Islam. Ruba, could you tell us any more about that? I don't know if you can at the moment, if your microphone will let you.
Would love to.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So God's breath in man immediately brings to mind the creation story in Genesis, where God breathes life into Adam, making him a living soul. This is from Genesis chapter 2, 7. This breath is not just air, but the very essence of life and spirit, the divine spark within humanity. It signifies our origin and our intrinsic connection to the Creator. This is also follows our point of view in Islam, and it has also a reference in our religion in Islam. It's the same idea. So I believe that we can consider it as a religious reference from Genesis.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, I mean, that's brilliant, because I didn't consider how the poem is itself textually related to the Bible in this really precise way. I really appreciate that. And it's really fabulous for me to understand more about Islam by your just explanation too. I really appreciate that. If I may, do you feel that that bears upon the relationship between God and the human being? You know, what do you think about that? I suppose I'm thinking still about Jeremiah's question too. If that divine spark is shared, it seems to me there's some kind of equal or more equal relationship going on, but that's my interpretation. If you wouldn't mind me asking, Ruba, what do you think about that?
I think that the very next lines reassure or just explain that idea, which is returning to his breath, which is it is like God gave us our life, and how to connect to our source, which is God, is by prayer. So prayer, it is about the bridge. It is like a bridge between to God and ourselves, our true selves. So it is like a connection.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think because for me, prayer, as I said, doesn't have, I look at it from a secular point of view. So for me, I think about prayer as sending a message over a long distance. That's often how I understand or can try and understand what it might mean. So I love the idea of it as a bridge, but also to ourselves, to our truer selves. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, okay. Is there anything else we would like to raise or discuss at this point? Any questions people might have, if anything's been unclear as well? Jeremiah, how does the final line? Oh, that's such a good question. Jeremiah, I think you should just take over the rest of the workshop. Ruba, Jeremiah, all of you. Yeah, that's what I think about it. I think that prayer is ultimately something for Herbert that can't be articulated in words. I think that that is what's going on when he uses a strict form, but then fails to abide by it. I think he's trying to convey that. I suppose it's partly prayer from a Protestant point of view, it's self-expression for a Protestant Christian, but also it's his own emotional interpretation, I think, of what it means to him personally. Yeah, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for your contributions. Yeah, Ruba, thank you. It is. I think it's amazing how that can become clear by how the poem's organized, because the images themselves, as I hope, tried to convey, are quite ambiguous most of the time. They don't give you a lot. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay. I will just sum up. How are we doing for time? Not too bad. Okay, so for Herbert, prayer is a spiritual experience that cannot be defined with complete precision. This seems to reflect his Protestant faith. Prayer is both more and, in a sense, less than the words of the poem or its form can describe. Prayer for Herbert is the vast mysteriousness of the soul. If it could be put into words, of everything, of all the mystery left out of the phrase, the land of spices. Prayer is the ambiguity and fleeting but powerful sound suggested by a kind of tune, which all things hear and fear. Prayer for Herbert is the uncertainty of these descriptions and the possibility of what we as readers can imagine. It is the artistry of a regular poetic form, the sonnet, but at the same time what can't be contained within that structure. Perhaps this sense of prayer being so many things at once is nowhere more clearly articulated than in the final description, something understood. What exactly? What? An experience, an awareness, a knowledge of something that it might not be possible to articulate directly in language. Something less certain, but still open to imagination. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat again. A reconnection without origin. Without origin, yes. That's a wonderful idea. But it's tricky to imagine what the origin is, I think sometimes, in the poem. Okay. We've got now two options. So for the remainder of our time together, we can have another interval, more time to reflect and discuss any questions. Or we could do a writing activity based on Herbert's poem, or depending on what feels possible, we could do both. I will share the instructions maybe for the writing activity with you now to help you decide. But also, if you prefer not to do it now, please know you will have it after the workshop, so you can do it in your own time. Let me get the instructions up on the slide. So the instructions are as follows, and I think you could have as long as 10 minutes or less if you wanted. So I would ask you first to choose whether you will write in Arabic or in English or a combination of both. Then to write or type out 4 descriptions in response to the idea of prayer, not necessarily in response to Herbert's poem, mind you, but they could include this, rather what the word prayer means to you. Each description could be, or rather should be in this case, I'm being strict, a single line of no more than 10 words, and they do not have to be grammatically complete sentences. In at least 2 of your descriptions, I would ask you to refer to the senses, so sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. And then if you felt like it, you could try cross-rhyming, rhyming the end of line 1 with the end of line 3, and the same with lines 2 and 4. What I will say is that I recognize the spiritual experience of prayer is very personal. So you may prefer not to write these things down, and you may also wish to keep them private. I want this activity to be between you and your thoughts if that feels most comfortable. However, if you would like to, and it feels comfortable to do so, I'd hope at the end of the writing activity, you would then maybe want to share up to 2 of your 4 lines with the group via the chat. So the idea being that together we could rewrite another version of the poem. So I'm going to look at the chat again, but what would you like to do? Would you prefer an open interval, or would you prefer to do a writing activity, or both? Ruba. Yeah, you're writing the poem already. It's wonderful. Ruba would like to do both. Ahmed, with that, I want to ask you as well, because I'm coming at this without, a good amount of perspective, I think, in lots of ways. What's your view on it?
Suppose that if students prefer to write in the chat, that should be okay, because I assume most of them are using their mobile phones to access the workshop. So if it doesn't interrupt their connection, they can write and type in the chat box. Otherwise, if it requires more effort in writing, etc., we can send them a worksheet to work on shortly after the session.
Okay.
Or if they prefer, but I can see they like both, so it should be fine.
Both. Great. Yeah. Okay, let's give it a go. Amazing. Thank you, Ahmed, and thank you for your enthusiasm, everyone. All right. So, are the instructions clear? First of all, just let me know if I should cover anything again. I'll leave them on the screen as well. Okay. Yeah, Ruba, all clear. All right. I should say, please feel encouraged to write in Arabic and share in Arabic, because you'll really be helping me a lot. Okay, so let's call it 12:42 where you are, and we'll have until, let's say, maybe just 5 minutes. So 12:40, let's call it 48. All right, so please go ahead. This is your time now. So please go ahead. And if you enter them into the chat, I won't look until the 5 minutes are up. However it works for you. I also include Millie and Chris, by the way. And you, Ahmed, if you want to. Just remember to try and let yourself write freely about it. First things that come to your mind. You might also write more than 4 lines to start with, and then select your favorites. Don't forget to breathe. I always forget to breathe when I'm writing. Ruba, when you take pictures. Yeah, I hope you don't take them often. 'By my count, you've got 2 minutes left. One minute. Okay. Time's up. Now, if you feel comfortable, please feel encouraged to send them into the chat. Oh, it's happening already. Yeah. I'll just maybe I'll be quiet a bit more. So you can send them in if you want to. This is wonderful. Thank you, Jeremiah. I should have said, I'd originally intended you can send in 2 of them. I didn't want to press you to send all of them, but send all of them as well. I think that would be amazing. So whatever you prefer. It's very moving to read them. Gonna stay quiet for now, just as I think maybe more will be coming. I hope so. But thank you already. Such a privilege to read these. Dr. Yahya, would you like to share? Notice you've turned your microphone on. Maybe not. But welcome. It's lovely to have you. Oh, thank you, Dr. Yahya. Thank you. Okay, I'll wait maybe 3 more minutes. Oh, this is lovely. Thank you. Oh, lovely idea. Dr. Yahya, I've flagged that question and I will come back to it. I just want to be sure everyone who would like to has sent in their lines. That's a really interesting question. Not one I can answer. I think one that's for you and for us to hopefully learn from you, I think. Okay, I'll wait 1 more minute. Okay. I'm going to read them aloud. I hope that's okay. So, prayer. Breathing out the weight I held too long. Mouth dry, but my heart hums a song. Face to the floor, the world feels still. I speak to the dark, maybe I will. Whispers, hopes echo like perfume rising in silent prayer. Tears fall, a cleansing release. My neck against a dike, dust devouring me, embracing my breathless lungs, reading the glint of my obscure eyes. It takes a hook, weaves with it the alphabet of a wrinkled city. Who am I? Who am I in front of this illusion? Who am I to the homeland? Whispered hopes in candlelight, glowing warm and bright, the scent of musk and earth in air so still. Silent tears on hands held tight through the night, a heartbeat echo rising with the will. I like yours better. Thank you so much for sharing your contributions and for, I think as from the beginning really, being so generous with your passion about poetry, about so many things. It's a really life-changing experience. Let me read Fatima's comments. Okay, so in reply, I think, to Dr. Yahya's question, how can we renovate the effect of poetry on the community? We re-influence poetry on society by making it seen, heard, and felt. We write it on walls, sing it in the streets, and make it the voice of the people, not the echo of books. I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think it says everything. Yeah. Yeah, it's very moving for me. Is there more anyone would like to sort of reflect on Dr. Yahya's question? Oh, Ruba sending more. This is wonderful. What I will do, I think I'll ask your permission now. I was hoping to extract your lines from the chat and to put them in the slides. If anyone would be uncomfortable with that, please message into the chat and say that you're uncomfortable with that, because I wouldn't want to if it's not appropriate. Jeremiah, you have a question? Yeah, please, because I've run through this really quickly. I meant to slow down, so we've got more time and as much time as you'd like. So please go ahead. Maybe you'll type your question. Here we go. Is this poem universal? I mean, this for me, my instinctive response is to say no. And I say that partly because I'm aware that I'm bringing to you an English Protestant poem. And I think that there's an element of, well, so what, you know, why should we be talking about this? How is it relevant? For me, what was relevant about it is the way it uses form and breaks the rules of form to express both what I think Herbert wants to express as a person, an individual, but also something that he feels is representative of his faith tradition. So I wouldn't say it's universal, no. I would say it provides an example, a kind of possibility that we can do what we want with, actually, as, you know, I hope and feel you have today already. Yes, please, Ruba. Point of view. Go on.
For me, I feel it is universal from how it is.
Okay.
Because even though we are, you know, praying in different ways, praying in different manners, I think, but we all are connected to only one God. We are only praying for only that one God. We all experience that thing, which is that connection, feeling that we are belonging to that place, to that divine source. It is like yeah, it is different religion, but it is the same experience. Somehow it is the same.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And it's, I suppose, part of the gift of poetry that you could express a collective experience as well. It doesn't have to be about the individual. It can be about what we share as much as what's different. Like you say, it can show what we have in common, this common experience of belief and faith. Yeah, thank you so much. I might revert back to Dr. Yahya's question and Fatima, if there were is there anything else you want to reflect on in terms of how poetry, I suppose maybe Ruba's point has answered this a bit, you know, the kind of, oh, Ruba, yeah, go ahead, stop me rambling, please.
So I believe that Arabs, for example, I'm talking about my ancestors. So I remember studying Arabic literature. I remember that Arab people and Arab groups used to celebrate so much and specific attributes, I guess, that if they have a poet, so whenever they have a poet in that village or something, they just celebrate so much because they have a poet. Because we all know we cannot avoid the importance that poets influence society. Because if I have an idea that I would share to other people and I want to influence those people, it is through poetry. So people at that back then was so intellected, so into poetry, so into these type of literature. So that's why they used to celebrate so much because they had a poet. I guess it is the same way now, but it's not as much as it was, but it is still true. Because if we want to influence people, if we want to change their minds or just give them a glimpse of new ideas or paths or just experiences, you can experience all these things while you're just reading those things. So yeah, I guess it is this way.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. I mean, you brought me back to the questions I started with. How is poetry a contribution to knowledge? What ways of knowing are possible in poetry? I mean, they can be endless, and that they have that role. I suppose the difference or difficulty of poetry, the beauty of it, is that it's quite open for imagination and interpretation. But thank you so much. That's fascinating for me to know. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. Well, that didn't take as long as I say. I rushed. So, Dr. Ahmed, and also maybe this is a time for feedback, about the events and what we're doing. I suppose. Dr. Ahmed, let's hear from you. I'd like to hear your voice again.
Thanks, George. And I think the students would agree with me that, well, it's been 1 hour and it felt like really a few minutes. Really enjoyable and seamless transition from part to another. I really enjoyed it. And
Good.
I'm sure the students enjoyed it as well. And I agree with you that that's the beauty of poetry, that it's open to interpretations, that intersects between cultures, religions, backgrounds. And that's the beauty of it. It brings people to talking to each other and discussing different ideas. Even like religious poetry like this one, it brings to the fore issues that people can discuss and agree or disagree, and that's absolutely fine, even from different backgrounds or religions. And I like the discussion that's going on, even the chat. It reflects the people, how attendees are thinking about the poem and explaining and interpreting the lines, the words, etc. And I really like those contributions, and they reflect how creativity springs from such webinar. No, I
Oh,
like the contributions. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, me
But
too.
well done, George.
Thank you.
That
I
was
mean,
really fantastic.
thank you for the opportunity. It would never have happened. It would never have happened. I've never delivered anything like this before. So it's only by virtue of being able to spend time with you that it's even become possible.
You're
So
welcome.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr.
I'm
Yahya.
sure the
Thank
students are grateful as well.
you.
You're-
Amazing. So perhaps this is where we can draw things to a close. I'm so pleased you've enjoyed it. If there's, I guess, anything brief encounters related or events related that we have to discuss now, we can, but I mean, it's up to you. I'm kind of happy to find out what people feel, if they have questions left or comments left that they really want to share.
That's
Or
absolutely. Well, they're welcome to share any
yeah.
comments, feedback, questions about the contributions that you're preparing or have in mind. In the upcoming weeks, we have further events that hopefully will support you as you go in terms of writing. If you're writing a story, if you're writing your lived experiences, and you would like to contribute those to the journal, so please, students, feel free to join us, and I'm sure these sessions will support you as you go in writing those contributions.
I might take this opportunity to ask just about the format of our events and just if there's anything. I suppose I'm speaking from not being as aware as I want to be of what the conditions are like for electricity and internet as much as I wish I could be. So, Ruba, thank you. Yes, let's have more meetings like this. I agree. I would love that. Are there I mean, is it do the recordings, I mean, I understand that they're working really well and people are happy with with this. Yeah, I suppose I'm looking for reassurance, Ahmed. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the
Great.
recordings are sent once they are processed after the meeting, and
Yeah.
I'm sure people can access the videos
Yeah.
with
And
no
that's
problem.
good.
So
Yeah.
should
Great.
be fine.
Great. Okay. Great. That's brilliant. That's great to have, reassure me about. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Yasmin.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Yasmin, Fatima, Huda, thank you, and Jeremiah. It's lovely. Yeah,
Lovely.
I've saved the chat. Yes, so I'll put the lines of your work into the slides and you'll receive those as well. But I think I'm sort of like, you can tell I'm just not wanting to end the session. I just wish it could go on. That's what's going on here. So Millie or Chris, I don't know, you've been very patient and quiet with me. So is there anything you want to reflect on? Because obviously I did ramble a bit about brief encounters and try and speak Arabic for a moment. And I know that's a part of our discussions, trying to convey that we would wish for everyone hoping to contribute that they feel they can break the rules a bit, because that's perhaps the truth of their circumstances right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm also just kind of not wanting this to end and just reflecting. I love that we've been able to see your writing in this workshop. I think that's been so special. And I hope that we can have more creative workshops like this one where you can contribute.
Amazing. Thank you, Millie.
I would echo that for sure. It was really interesting to hear the cultural differences in prayer, I thought, actually, but also the similarities and the value people took from those respective things. It was really interesting, I think, to reflect on, I was reflecting on that, the phenomenology of prayer, and just the way in which it's performed by different religions kind of affects our understanding or our feelings about it. But I was just really impressed with everyone's questions. And George, I thought this was a really fantastic, well put together, thoughtful webinar. So congratulations to everyone who contributed.
Thank you very much, Chris. This is high praise. Yeah, the kind of, I think, as Ruba pointed out, the fact that Herbert was an orator, and there's different traditions of oratory in religion and different traditions of, what's the word I want? Services or something equivalent to that word. Yeah, it's interesting, really interesting. We have a lot to learn. Okay. Yeah, I think that might be everything. So, Dr. Ahmed, shall we call it a day? I'm so reluctant to. You can just tell.
I am reluctant as well, but I really appreciate your time and effort and everyone involved. But it feels like, we don't want to finish this session. It's really interesting. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
George, for Millie.
When will we see you again? Sorry about that, to interrupt you. Do we know yet?
On the 7th of June, we have a session, and I'll be announcing this very soon. And we'll be talking about storytelling and transformation and healing as a strategy.
Sorry to preempt you, but I'm just so
fine.
excited. Thank you. Yes, spoiler alert.
It's already planned, and I'll announce it very soon.
Dr. Ahmed, I also wanted to, while we have everyone here, just ask you and the students. I'm working on a workshop as well that will be about the land and visual art, which is what my research is on. And I just wanted to mention it because I realize we're moving out of the English discipline in doing this. So this will be more of an art historical one, if you're interested in that.
Absolutely. I assume, and perhaps students who are with us today can confirm this. And that's the beauty of learning languages. It doesn't have to be within the constraints of language, learning language or writing about language. We are aiming at touching upon topics that are interdisciplinary. And when students write about their lived experiences later for the journal, ultimately they will be talking about history, about the land, about storytelling, about their stories, which is not language. It's language is the only is seen as the tool they will use to convey their ideas. But of course, knowledge is interdisciplinary, and a new contribution is more than welcome. I'm sure my students will agree with. So yeah, we look forward to it.
Fantastic. It'll be photography and things like that, I think will be.
Wow, it will be interesting. I look forward to it. Personally, I look forward to it. So
Thank you.
yeah, more than welcome.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll say it again. I'm so pleased and just it's a wonderful, wonderful experience for me. Thank you.
Same here.
That's all I have to say now. Just thank you.
Wow, thank you, George. Thank you, Millie, and thanks, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll see you on the 7th of June. And
Excellent.
just stay tuned for that now.
Yeah. Look
See you
forward
soon.
to it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Shukran. Take care. Bye bye.
Shukran.